What's up, guys? Welcome to the 3D Frequency Science channel. Oh, this is a channel that discusses the science of Walter Russell, and we have an interesting topic for you today. But first, before we get into it, let me just say, I have the utmost respect for scientists, current scientists, and scientists that came before. Okay? The scientists who honestly tried to find the truth and add to the human race's understanding of the universe. Whether they were right or wrong, or they were right for many years and then they were proven wrong later by another concept that came out, years later. Either way, I think their efforts and contributions are worthy of respect and gratitude. So thank you to all the scientists out there. Thank you. Now, I come to you in that same spirit of trying to find the truth and to increase the human race's understanding of the universe. Now, today I want to talk about Walter's science concept, and specifically I want to talk about why Walter Russell's science concept is a theory of everything that might actually work, and why, in my opinion, it's worth deeper investigation. So, now, many people, when they first encounter Russell's work, they'll just dismiss his science for various reasons. Like they'll say, oh, he wasn't a scientist, or, oh, he's talking about God, or it just sounds like nonsensical crap, right? Now, let me start with a comparison to kind of level the playing field here. Now, in traditional science, we don't know what happened before the Big Bang, right? And in Walter's concept, he talks about God being the cause of everything. So I'm just going to ask you to set aside Russell saying God is the cause of everything for now, because it's like arguing what happened before the Big Bang. We just don't have scientific proof if that God created the Big Bang or not, right? So, but if we set that aside for now, we can concentrate on the physics of what is happening after the Big Bang, okay? And we can see if Russell's concepts match with nature or not. The other thing I'm gonna ask you to set aside is judging the merit of Russell's concept by comparing it to other current science theories. Okay, because this, I have noticed, is a trap of a mistake that people fall into all the time. Now, it's much better to judge the merit of a scientific concept on how closely it matches the observations of nature. So, for example, we don't want to say things like, well, how does his concept explain time dilation of general relativity? Or this part of his concept can't be true because quantum field theory tells us X, Y, Z. No. We want to say things like, well, okay, does his concept match observations of nature that we've seen in chemistry? Or, does his concept match observations of nature that we've seen in astronomy? Those are the kind of questions that can lead us to the truth, okay? So, or to lead us to see if his concepts have merit. So I hope you guys can see the subtle difference there, because, the ultimate goal of science, understanding if a concept works with other science theories, I can see that can be important. But the ultimate goal of science is that we want to see, does this concept match the observations of nature? right? In my opinion. So, because it just may be the truth that Russell's concepts do not match with some other theories, and yet his concepts describe nature very well, and even describe nature better than those other theories that his theory doesn't match with. So, all right. So if you guys can set those two things aside for now, and remember, we're looking for how well Russell's concept agrees with nature, then we can begin. So, when you're putting stuff in the comments, I don't want to hear, oh, well, this doesn't match quantum theory, or this doesn't match general relativity. No. How does it match with nature? Okay. Now, let's begin. Russell's concept tells us that everything is made of the same singular substance, which he calls light. Now, mind you, Walter had to choose terms to describe his science. Just because he said light does not mean that is the same light that we are currently, used to, like photons, okay? It's different. In Walter's concept, light is a substance. So it actually has mass. Anyway, let's move on. So he gives an analogy to kind of explain, one substance. So look at water. So water can be a liquid. It can be ice, it can be steam. It depends on the temperature and pressure of the surrounding environment that leads to these differences of form. So ice seems to be an entirely different thing than water vapor, right? Ice and water vapor, they're like totally different. But these different forms of water that have different characteristics are just illusions of water turning into different things. All these different forms are, in fact, still just water. It's the same substance, right? Cold will turn steam into liquid, and further cold will turn liquid into solid ice. The reverse is true, right? That heat will turn solid ice into liquid, and further heat will turn liquid water to steam. So Russell points out that the important thing to notice is that what's actually happening is the molecules of water are changing their speed. Okay, so, in ice, the water molecules are moving at a relatively slow rate. And when heat is applied, that motion speeds up. The molecule motion speeds up, and it changes the solid to a liquid. When further heat is applied to the liquid, the molecule motion speeds up more and turns to steam. Okay? Of course, the opposite is true. Where cold will slow down the speed of the steam molecules and turn it into liquid water. And further cold will slow down the liquid water molecules and, turn it to ice, solid ice. So now if we take that example and apply it to this one substance that Walter calls light, then we can say, due to the pressure and temperature of the surrounding environment, light can apparently change to different things that have different characteristics, like elements and tables and planets, all these different kinds of things. But in reality, it's all the same substance of light. And just like the molecules in the water example, Russell describes how it is the rate of motion of the light that causes the changes in form. Changes that we see as apparently different things, but it is still the same substance. Okay, so let's see if Russell's concept matches with nature well. So, we talked about how he says light. We did the water example, right, of the freezing, the melting, the liquid, the steam, and so he says light is the same way. So he basically says that light crystallizes into form. We think of reality as like solids, so like when you think of like, a bar of gold, like that's something that's solid. But we only experience gold as a solid because on this planet, the pressure of this planet and the temperature range of this planet that we inhabit, if our temperature here on Earth was much higher, then we would experience gold as a liquid or as a gas. But our temperature is lower than the melting point of gold, right? The same thing could happen with, say, like helium. We experience helium as a gas, and so we can't see it. We literally can't see helium, right? We can't perceive it because our temperature, if our Earth's temperature was much lower, then we would experience helium as a liquid or even a frozen solid. And we would think like a bar of helium is like something you could build with, So, but it's because our temperature is much higher than the freezing point of helium, or even the liquidation, the from going from liquid to gas, whatever that term is, Scarlett, sorry. But our temperature is even above that. So we experience helium as a gas. So from those two examples of gold and helium and the previous one of water, we can start to see that this is the same for all elements on the periodic table. Okay, all of them go through this same transformation of form, right? From gas to liquid to solid, right? And Russell, as he's put into his periodic table, he's listed where they are in in their because remember, it's motion. It is the motion of light that is creating the forms that we see. So it's the motion that's creating the gas, or the motion that's creating the liquid, or the motion that's creating the solid. So all of the different motions of light will put each element into its specific kind of place on that periodic table. He's organized them that way. So it's essentially all the dimensions of motion, all these different ways you can measure it. There's 18 of them. All these different ways you can measure it will create the form that we see of, say, gold, or the form that we see of, whatever other element. So, and so Walter, having a structure of all the measurements of motion and then being able to categorize them on a table, allows us to know, okay, well, when it's this temperature and this pressure, that's going to affect light in this, it's going to make light move this certain way. And that light movement is going to make us see whatever element is on that table. And then additionally, the light comes together in systems. So, for example, you'll have, say an element, because it's at a certain pressure and temperature and motion of light, but then that element can be attracted to another element, like, you have the element of sodium and, whatever other element, they come together to form, they can form a new compound, they can form, and basically these systems can become systems of systems and systems of systems of systems. And that's how things are built up, so that where we turn into, turns into all kinds of things that we see, like a koala bear or a big, the sun or whatever. So, but it's all light forming together because of motion into small systems, and then these systems can match together to create bigger systems. And that's all, and he's documented all that in his chemistry. That periodic table shows all the elements and how they are attracted to each other, which is, we're going to have to definitely do a video on that. But essentially, with the idea of one substance of light being in motion, that motion causing various forms to appear, and then those forms being able to come together into larger forms, it becomes a total theory of everything. And it's all, systematic and mathematical. So now, if this is true, that the motion of light causes light to appear in different forms, then for us to have a complete understanding of all physics in the universe, all we need to do is understand what speed of light motion causes what forms to appear. And this is exactly what Russell does in his books. He goes into extreme detail and depth, describing the characteristics of motion that create the multitude of forms that we experience in our universe, that we observe in our universe. He does this on all scales, large and small, by showing us 18 specific ways to measure the various characteristics of all motion. He explains what pressures and temperatures of environments create what motions of light. And he then connects, what forms are created as effects of the various causal motions. Motion is the cause, and form is the effect. Okay. Furthermore, he sets up a structure that shows that all of the various motions that can happen are periodic and repetitive, and they happen in an orderly, evolving way. This allows us to not only understand what happens in any situation, but to predict what will happen in any situation in the future without the need for experimentation. It can all be worked out on paper beforehand with mathematical precision. Being able to understand and predict physical events in our universe is a prize worth investigating. Russell's concept, in my opinion, is worth investigating because we will be able to understand and predict physical events. Not to mention all the incredible things we'll be able to do once we fully understand how all matter is created from light motion and how it moves and interacts with other matter as it evolves. There's a whole list of incredible stuff that we'll be able to do. But this video is not about that. So that is just that is what I wanted to talk about today, and hopefully give you a general idea of his concept and why could be a theory of everything that works, because he's taking everything and simplifying it down to one substance of light. And the motions of that light are the cause of all the forms that get created. every element. He literally had, if you guys can see this back on my wall here, this is a picture of his periodic table. And he's organized it to show where, this specific motion will create this specific element. And then this specific motion will create another element. It's actually organized. This is one of the measurements that he takes is something that's called plane. And it starts at 0 degrees, then 45, and then I don't know the exact number, but here, and then up to 90 degrees. And so he measures that and so we know that certain elements will appear here on this plane, spiraling around, and we know other elements will appear here on this plane, spiraling around. It's fascinating. I'm going to do a whole video on that dimension of plane, that measurement of plane from 0 to 90 degrees. So stay tuned for that. Okay, but I hope you guys can see that, if we simplify everything to light, and then we know that it's the motions of light that cause everything to appear, then we can literally, if we know how to measure all the motions, we can literally understand all chemistry, all astronomy. It's because it's all light. So he has simplified it. And he's brought it down to only two forces, radiation and gravitation, but that's another video as well. But so I hope this makes sense. Guys, please put in the comments what you think. Remember, comparing it to other concepts, it's not really going to be so productive, at least not yet. But, I plan to go deeper to, and your questions will kind of help me see what you guys got out of this, or maybe what you didn't get, like what's missing, and then I can maybe answer those questions or make another video about, certain questions that come up. So please write your questions in the comments. Please be respectful, because, I understand that what I just told you is very new to some of you guys. You might be like, what are you talking about? Light and motion, and that causes matter, and that causes things and form. What? I understand that. I do study traditional science, quantum field theory and general relativity, and I know that is the current science that works for us. Okay, so this is not, I'm not here to say, oh, Russell's stuff is so much better than that stuff. Because like I said in the beginning, there are many scientists that came before us, Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, but the list goes on and on and on, right? Like, I have the utmost respect for all of the scientists who created the amazing science that we currently have. I'm just trying to expand in another direction, because I think Walter's concept offers us some interesting things. And so here on my channel, I'll be, exploring those things, and hopefully trying to bring them to the foreground for people to discuss and start a discourse. So if you like this kind of content, please, subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Definitely it helps out the channel. If you like the video, hit the like button and subscribe. I do have a paid group called the 3D Frequency Science Lab that's on the school platform. That's skool.com. You can check that out, because that's where we go really deep in discussing all of this stuff, because it is deep. It takes a long time. And so we do Zoom meetings on there so that we can have time to delve into these, issues in depth, which I can't do in a 20-minute video. So, all right. Well, that's it, guys. We'll hope to see you next time on the 3D Frequency YouTube channel. I'll see you next time. I'll see you next time. But I need a tagline that I can say at the end.